Hi, I'm Dr. Sarah Hercula, and my students usually call me Dr. Hercula or Dr. Herc or Dr. H. Any of those are fine. The field of linguistics is really cool because most students don't encounter it until they get to college. And so it provides this whole new way of looking at language that's really different from the way that K through 12 teachers present the topic of language. And so it takes this scientific look at the different pieces that make up language and the structure of language, but then also a big picture look at how language works between people of all kinds of different aspects, different races and genders and cultures and geographical locations, and how that interaction plays out. And so I think students really enjoy taking a new approach to something that they've studied for 13 years already, and finding new ways to get excited about how language plays out. In this particular course, I use a couple of different dialects as our main source of language data throughout the semester. So we look at African American English and Chicano English as two dialects that are spoken in the United States and that have really large speech communities. And so I get really excited about digging into those dialects. They're a part of my research and a part of my teaching, so that's a really cool crossover for me. And I love getting in and looking at the features of those dialects and looking at how they differ from, say, standard English or written English. And then also looking at how they're intricate and how speakers use them in different ways. And so as you move from speech sounds to grammar to words to sentences and then to usage, you get to see how that plays out on all of those different levels of language, which I find really fascinating, and usually students will like at least one of those levels along the way. It starts out with speech sounds, with phonetics and phonology. Then we move on to grammar with morphology and syntax, kind of how words are put together and how sentences and phrases are put together. And then we move on to semantics, which is meaning, and pragmatics, which is usage or meaning and context. And so that takes up almost a half to 2/3 of the class to just kind of progress through those levels and to learn that new terminology and then to apply those concepts to the dialects that we'll be studying in the class. And then in the last part of the semester, we kind of broaden and look at some more big picture topics that revolve around the speech communities that we're studying. And so we'll get into issues like linguistic inequality and linguistic discrimination, as well as language and education and language policy and planning. And so all of those kinds of big picture topics are really usefully built upon what you've learned at the beginning of the semester as you've learned kind of all the pieces of the puzzle, I guess, of a dialect. And so so it kind of builds in that way, and the end of the semester really focuses on, so now that you know what you know about all of this and about the field of linguistics, what does this mean to you, right? And how can you apply it to the work that you're going to be doing, to your own major, or to your daily life as you move on after this class. There's a really systematic approach to how linguists look at language. There's sort of if we're talking about these different levels, there's kind of a right and a wrong with how you can analyze them. In fact, phonologists learn a whole different alphabet in how to describe speech sounds. So there's really these kinds of systematic and categorical ways of looking at language that is really different from just sort of reading a novel and reflecting on it, or choosing a topic and writing a paper. It's a more in-depth look at kind of how language is structured. Most of my classes involve both in-person work and online work. And so you'll do a combination of course, like any class, work from home and work in the classroom. And sometimes that work from home looks like readings, but it could also look like online discussions or online quizzes, or just plain old homework assignments, right? That you'll do in preparation for coming to class and discussing those topics with me and with the other students in the class. So I do have some pretty large expectations, both on making sure that you get your preparatory work done, that you're doing your readings and you're doing your assignments, but that also attendance is really important in this class. Because if you're missing class, then you're missing out on that opportunity to cement your knowledge and to discuss these new concepts with me and with the other students. So what I expect from students is engagement. And by that I mean engagement in the classroom, engagement out of the classroom, and a willingness to talk about what you're learning. It's really easy to go to a class and to sit in the back and to never say anything and still learn. But in the kinds of classes that I teach and in the model and the philosophy that I use in teaching, the best way to learn is to come prepared and then to engage. So to discuss with your students, to ask questions, to apply what you're learning to other parts of your life or to other aspects of your major or of your study. That's the best way that you can gain a lot out of my classes, is to find connections between what you're learning now and what may happen in the future, or even to your own everyday life. My name is Dr. Sarah Hercula, and the best way to reach me is to send me an email. I'm usually really good at responding to those within 24 to 48 hours. And I'm looking forward to having you in class.